Welcome to another edition of Social Media News Live. I am so excited that you're here. We've got all sorts of cool things to talk about today. So we're talking about really upgrading your Zoom experience. We've all had to use Zoom. If you haven't been part of Ecamm's community, they've been talking about this all week. I got Doc and Andy here. Let's save the best for last. This is going to be a ton of fun. So if you're wanting to upgrade your Zoom experience, your webinars, remote producing, podcasting, all that stuff, you need to watch the show. And if you know anybody who, that fits the bill, you need to call them in to the conversation down below. Call them in wherever you are watching from. We're going to bring up your questions, as many as possible during today's show, because I know there's a ton of them. I've got a ton of them. And so this is going to be a lot of fun. Doc, how are you doing today, my friend?
Man, good. It's been a long week going through this, but I guess the fun part is I feel like it's almost over and semi anticlimactic because we've been working on this for a minute. Like it's been a while. And so now it's here. It's like, oh my God, let's go. So yeah, it's been super cool.
And Andy, I was telling him before the show, I was like, I feel like I know him because I've seen him like 4 different times this week on all these different shows. So Andy, thank you so much for being here. I know you guys are both tired. This has kind of been a long stretch, but I'm assuming you've learned a lot of things. So
it's been a fabulous week. It's so exciting to see the energy that people are coming back to us with about this integration. So that's been probably the most fun part of this journey for me. Has just been seeing what people are out there talking about and excited to try.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We got some of our friends popping in today. We got Gary Stockton, who is always showing up, always doing cool things. This is really interesting. This is a new thing. It's actually showing YouTube and Restream together, which I've never seen before with an icon. So that is interesting when I pull them up. And I had multiple people, Doc, email me saying, that's like early for Doc. Like it's super early in Hawaii. And even Chris messaged me yesterday, like he must really like you because he's on there. But no, I think it's just part of his job. He wouldn't do it. Well, maybe he would. Anyway, it's just going to be
I would.
Be fun.
It's an ex-Army thing. I'm used to getting up at dark 30 or crack of the morning, as we call it.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to let you guys know, if you haven't checked it out yet, I do have my toolbox. It's a free download. It's got cool stuff like Ecamm in it. You can find out more about that by going jeffc.com/toolbox. But I'm going to go ahead. Look at all these people popping in. Doc saying 5 a.m. Doc's bandwidth is still waking up, is what Gary was saying. And this is very true. Doc does more before 5 a.m. than most people do before 5:30. That is very true.
That's the old Army commercial.
Yeah, and my my friend Rich Watch is saying welcome. So once again, guys, as we're going through this, ask your questions. I want to make this show all about you. And on that note, I'm going to hit go on the podcast machine, and we will get started. Hello, folks. Welcome to Social Media News Live. I'm Jeff C., and you're not. And this is the show that keeps you up to date in the world of social media and so much more. And have you ever wondered how you can elevate your virtual meetings to a professional broadcast level? Maybe you're curious about the tools that can transform your online interactions, or maybe you're looking to enhance your live streaming, your podcasting, your remote producing, all those questions. If you've thought those, then this show is going to be perfect for you. Today, we are thrilled to welcome 2 experts who have been on the road touting this thing crazily all week. They've got it down. Doc Rock and Andy Carluccio, right? Is that how you say your name?
Carluccio.
Carluccio.
Yeah,
I was trying. Luria even messed it up, so I feel okay. So they're going to be here today talking about their tips to talk about this powerful integration. I'm very excited. So sit back, clear your schedule, clear your mind to get ready for this week's episode of Social Media News Live. Andy and Doc, thanks again. This is going to be fabulous today.
Thank you, Jeff.
So I'm going to jump right into some of these questions that I have. I scoured the community. There's a lot of questions, but Doc, I want you just first of all, we're talking about the Ecamm and Zoom integration. Kind of give us a bird's eye view of what it is and what it actually does.
When Ecamm comes out during the Panini and everybody was using Ecamm, a lot of people was like, this would be cool, but I want to be able to also host my Zoom meetings and bring them in through Ecamm. And so one of the first features that, sort of got elevated during that time was this idea of a virtual camera, which would mean anything you could do in Ecamm, the output of that would show up as a camera that you could then use to place anywhere a camera would go. Meet, Teams, Zoom, so forth, so on, etc. And this was great. And then everybody goes, hey, but now I need the people in Zoom to be able to come back to Ecamm with their sound. And we were like, yeah, so now you're going to need to learn how to mix like a boss. You're going to need some extra hardware or software, in order to allow that to happen. And when Andy had his product called Zoom ISO, we were like, yo, this is cool. But I support the people that can't turn on a soda can. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to tell them about Zoom ISO. Like the ones that were like myself or Daniel or, the hyper nerdy guys, like I would tell them because I figured they would be able to handle it. But there was no way I was going to put Stephanie on Zoom ISO. And she's brilliant, but she's not a tech person, so to speak, right? So we happened to meet at NAB with Glenn and Katie and Andy, myself and Alex, and we were like, yo, we would love to figure out a way to make this happen. And Rabbi David Paskins put us together and made us be friends. And Andy and Ken and Glenn disappeared for a minute, and they came back and goes, look. And then we were like, whoa. So now it's very Apple in a sense, like it just works. You already know how to use Zoom. You already know how to use Ecamm. You already know how to use EFZ. It just works.
Yeah. Andy, what about from the Zoom kind of side of things? What excited you about partnering with Ecamm for this integration?
A huge part of our strategy right now on the Zoom side in the events and broadcast area is partnering with companies that have industry tools that people are already used to using. So what we've been focused on the Zoom side is integrating our core technology into tools that developers can then integrate into their products. And the reason that we do this is that for end users, there's no more of a seamless workflow than being able to use the tool that's already part of your toolkit and then be able to add superpowers to it, like being in, a remote guest or something along those lines, right? So by integrating our core technology into third-party products, it allows us to give a familiar experience while also being able to surface an interface that people are already very comfortable with. With the Ecamm team, they've really taken that mission very seriously and thought about the user journey, I think, pretty intensely. And what's resulted from this now is the ability to have, as I've been touting, a very seamless workflow that allows you to integrate, whether it's remote guests, whether it's presenting comments or other interaction materials that pop up inside of Zoom, or just presenting yourself in a more professional way inside of your Zoom meeting without having to worry about mix minus and virtual webcams and things of that nature. I think that's definitely added a lot of value.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, when I first heard about it, I was like, I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm glad that things are moving forward. But I'm like, and I've gotten this question a lot when I said that we were doing this show today. People were asking me, well, Jeff, why not just use the virtual camera into Zoom? Like before, I would start, Ecamm first. I'd have my virtual camera running, all my setup all going, and then I would, start Zoom and join a call, right? And it would all work. So, Doc, why do we need what is the big? And I'm throwing you a softball, but what is the big deal about this Zoom integration? Why can't we just use the virtual camera?
Okay, so I've had this happen to me many occasions in talking with clients and things like that. I'll use my friend Eddie Mata as an example. Eddie does a show where he interviews sort of athletes and actors, and some of these guys got hit with a few baseballs. So he sends them the Ecamm link for Chrome, and they're just deer in the headlights. They have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
There is not a carbon-based life form on this planet that doesn't know how to open Zoom at this point.
Well,
so
you haven't met my mom.
How much easier is it? That's funny, Jeff. I'm not going to tell her. How much easier is it to send someone a Zoom link? And again, going back to what Andy said, these are tools that people already know. They already have a familiarity with. And even if they're not a high-end user, though, they don't think that they have to know something extra to go to a Zoom link. They've been to many a Zoom drink ups or sewing circles or whatever. So they'll just pop into Zoom, and to them, it's seamless. So as an ease of use for your guests, anybody who's doing shows like this where we have guests come in with Chrome, and then we got to tell them how to set up their headphones and their audio and all these other things, all of that goes out the window, right? You just send them a Zoom link. They're very familiar with that, and they can just go. Even for one of our broadcast clients, his thing was always his contemporaries on the shows that he do, they're all very familiar with Zoom. Most of them had never heard of Ecamm. So when he sends them an Ecamm guest link, his producers always spend a lot of time just trying to tell people, never mind what the tool is, just use it. Here is a cup of water. It's still water. Like, it doesn't matter what, but some people can't,
Right.
they get so distracted by the vessel. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the idea of drinking a beer in a boot freaks people out. But if you've been to Stuttgart, Germany, it's just called Saturday.
I love Doc's analogies. That's why people watch the show. Is his stories. One of the things, speaking of that seamless integration, I do, because I've done the show, and Andy and I were talking before about 3.5 years, and I've never had anybody issue coming in, but they'll be like, "Is this right? It doesn't feel. Am I okay?" But to your point, Doc, that people know Zoom. Like, everybody's joined a Zoom meeting. They've had to do it for school board stuff during COVID, all that kind of stuff. So there's that little less friction, I think, is really, really key in this. And one thing that kind of I wasn't expecting that I really like. So I run a paid mastermind on Thursday with Paul Gowder, and we were testing this out last night for that. And I had all my it's integrated. Like, I just click a button inside of Ecamm, and all my meetings from my calendar are there that I can just click on join, and I don't have to open that other window. That sounds like a small thing, but that's a big deal.
Huge.
Like, it is. It's just cool. So that's just one of and it's so seamless that it's inside. Just not having to open up another program makes me happy, I guess.
It's kind of the idea that if Apple made a blender, it will be over-engineered, and it will be crazy, and it will be why. But it's good because they made a blender. Like, right. So they just make good stuff. So it doesn't really matter how crazy it sounds. It's familiar.
Yeah. So we've already got some questions from our amazing community, and this is from Tommy over on YouTube. He goes, and Andy, I want you to take this one. Does the integrated Zoom in ECL require a Zoom membership to host a meeting? So do you have to have a Zoom membership?
Yeah, the idea is that you sign into Ecamm with your Zoom account. So you can sign in with a free basic account, and then Ecamm will basically inherit all the properties of that account. So if you sign in with free basic, for example, your meetings will be 360p and limited to 40 minutes. If you have a business account, you can have a up to, I think, 30-hour meeting, and you can have 1080p enabled for your video quality as well. So it basically inherits your Zoom account. You bring your Zoom account into Ecamm. You don't have to go buy a special Zoom license just to use with Ecamm. You can bring whatever Zoom license you already have into the integration, and then it will basically sync up with your account and bring over whatever properties you have from the Zoom side into Ecamm.
Yeah, so on that note, I was testing it with the free account, did that for a long time, but it's so cool. I bought the pro account just because I can see the use case for that, which we're going to get into later on. But our friend Cast Ahead says, yes, familiarity is huge. Just because we deal with all this tech stuff every day doesn't mean that everyone else does. It's the curse of knowledge. So yeah, very true. And then my daughter over on LinkedIn says, opening a million windows sucks, so yay. So there we go. That is just
true.
Right. Captain, my captain. Oh my God, I miss you, Captain. Good to see you.
She's going to be at Creator Camp, Doc. So we'll talk about that.
Super stoked. Yeah, super hang out with the captain.
Yeah. So this is a great question from Ian, and I know there's a different. Well, by the way, this is a Zoom. We're in Zoom right now. Like, Andy had it, passed it over to me. He joined through Zoom. Doc used Ecamm's interview, and he's in that way. So. And you can't tell. It's just seamless. Like, it just works. So very, very cool. But Ian asked this question. When we bring guests in from interview mode or Zoom, what's the difference in resolution? Doc, will you take that?
Go ahead,
Andy, you go.
Go ahead, Doc.
Go first.
You can. Okay. So I can. Okay.
I'll just do this. Doc, go.
Oh, of course. When I bow down to Andy, there you go. Listen, the best way to explain it is Zoom makes those decisions for you. And yesterday, we kind of blew Stephanie's mind because me coming from Honolulu and Daniel swinging in from Canada, she was streaming on YouTube. Both of us were coming in at 360, and she didn't even know. She's like, man, you guys look great. She goes, what's the resolution? And then we told her how to check in Ecamm. And then she goes, oh, it says it's only 360. I go, exactly. Because people have this really strange thought process that resolution is what picture quality is, and it's not, it's bandwidth. I literally just commented on this in Facebook because people are still asking for 1080 60 for Facebook to do this. The only thing that would probably blow your mind at 60 frames per second in this picture is nothing, because the plan is still, my head is still, Scuba Steve, my little stormtrooper back there, he's not moving. So what is him moving 60 frames a second going to do for this image? Nothing at all. So you'll probably get 1080 if you have a business pro plan. You'll get 720, 40, whatever, but those decisions are made by Zoom. It's not really up to you.
I can speak to some of the logic that's used on the Zoom side. So I don't know what interview mode's top resolution is, but in the Zoom platform, we go to 1080p. So 720p for interview mode.
1080. My bad.
Okay, so you have 1080 on interview. We have 1080 on Zoom side as well. So, and that's going to be for our business customers. For pro customers, you can get activated up to 720p, and then for free basic, it's 360p. There's a great article, by the way, on the Ecamm documentation that lays all this out. It links to our Zoom knowledge base as well for how to get this all set up. But typically, it involves sending in a support request, and then based on the type of account that you have, somebody in the back end will give you access to a higher resolution that you can then use. And like I said before, it's just a factor of what you join with. In other words, let's say you're doing an event for some organization and they have a business account. You don't have to have a separate business account on your side. You just join their meeting like we're doing right now, or we're joined through my Zoom account, and we have 1080p enabled in this meeting, for example, regardless of what Jeff's license is in this case.
Yeah, so that was a really cool thing, which I had never thought of before, and I'm trying to think of use cases for that. Like maybe if you're a remote producer and you want to take it from, they had bad bandwidth or something, whatever is going on with their show, and they could pass it to you. So Andy started the Zoom meeting, and then he gave me the link and gave me control, and I just entered that into into Ecamm, and then I was able to pull up all this stuff, and it just works. It's like Apple, it just works. So that's very cool. This is a great question from Tommy again. He goes, some Zoom calls have multiple pages in the Zoom gallery. Does the integrated Zoom Ecamm have a limit on participants in the gallery? And what about audio call-in only guests? So Andy, you want to take that?
So the integration doesn't limit the number of people who can be in the meeting. I think the maximum size of a Zoom meeting is up to 1,000 people, and the presence of Ecamm doesn't change that. Now, the number of guests that you can pull into Ecamm to simultaneously show their video in your scene, that's going to be 8. But it doesn't place any limit on the number of people who can participate in the meeting.
Gotcha. Doc, you want to say something?
No, I was going to say 1,008.
Right. But you could round robin that too. Like you could have somebody in there and then, have it come from the green room and pop them up, and that wouldn't make you have a hit. So,
and I think the reason that works so well is that Ecamm made it super easy to add someone. So this idea of round robining, you're not going to go over to like the big video panel and unplug a cable and patch something else in. You're just going to drag and click add, and it'll be easy. So
right. So this is a great question from Gary, and this is since I'm big on repurposing. I know a lot of people in there. Chris Stone's in the audience. He does a lot of repurposing. He says, I think the only drawback that I can see is with the ISO recordings is we would only see 360p footage. That's, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's if you don't request the 720 if you have a pro plan, correct?
Correct.
That's right. So if you have any paid Zoom license, you're able to get up to 720p. And then, like I said, if you have the business license, you can get 1080p. And then when Ecamm does the ISO recording, and Doc, keep me honest, but it'll record basically the quality that was provided to it.
Right. We take what you send. Right. Yeah. So, and so, yeah, that part is key. But I just want to let people know, like, not to freak out as far as like what your show quality is going to look like. That's going to be fine. If you're going to do repurposing, then yeah, you're going to want to have a business pro account in order to get, the best resolution. But also now, here's where everybody gets, what's the word? What's that old country saying? Champagne tastes and
Caviar
Pepsi
dreams
wallet or something like that.
Yeah.
Yo, if you're rocking the 2019 Intel Mac, good luck with that. So like if you want these things, cool, but I have a Mac Studio, I can want these things.
So let's talk about requirements. Like is there a minimum system requirements? I know for ISO recordings you have to have the new Mac Silicone for one, if you want to do that. Is there any other sort of minimum system requirements Doc, to use this integration?
You know me, is still killing an M1 16 gig Mac Mini. Works perfectly fine. Will handle all 8 of them guests and look glorious. When you start getting crazy with it, then it gets a little bit, nuts. But it's not a real hard, steadfast rule. But basically, the amount of GPU cores that your machine has is about how much you can push it before it starts freaking out.
Gotcha. On let's talk about adding people, because Gary had a question about, so would I be a guest to my own Ecamm when he's talking about making a Zoom?
No.
Can you kind of talk about you just add them as a guest, and if you have your scenes already set up, it just works, correct?
Yes. Here, let me wake up the moderators.
So what I'm doing, Gary, right now is I haven't changed anything. I didn't have to build a new template or anything for this show because I already had everybody's, guest 1, guest 2, guest 3 set up in my scenes. I would just take the Zoom and apply Andy to, he's guest 2, Doc is guest 1, and it just works throughout my scenes like any other camera that I would bring in. Did I say that right, Doc? Okay.
You basically add them into a scene. So again, here's what I want to hammer this point home, because I totally see where the question is coming from. Because you think you have to learn something. You do not have to learn anything. You already know how to use Zoom. You already know how to use Ecamm. So here's what happens. When you fire up the meeting in Ecamm, what you're going to see is the Zoom participants in the little panel. And that panel is going to be analogous to the camera switcher in Ecamm. There's going to be the word add next to each of those individual persons. If you add Ian Anderson Gray, the notorious IAG, he will be now added to your meeting. Me being me, I'm also going to convert him into a placeholder camera. So I'm going to turn him into camera G for Gray. Mm-hmm. And then now in any scene that I develop, or prior to him calling, any scene that I develop, I put a placeholder camera G, and I put that in my scene, just like you built the scene this morning. So I would be camera D and Andy would be camera A, because this is what I do, because I'm weird like that. But when Andy calls in, all you do is assign Andy to camera A, and every scene that you've built with camera A, Andy's face will be there. Every scene that you built with camera D, my face will be there.
It sounds more complicated than it is. Like, if I can do it, y'all can do it. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's what.
Did you set this up, or did Abby set it up?
No, well, yeah, probably a lot smoother if she did it. And this is another point from Gary. He goes, he's wanting to know what the guest might see, like changing mic settings and all that kind of stuff. He's not sure what they see. It's like a regular Zoom, correct?
That's right. So I'm sitting on the other end of a Zoom call right now. So I guess I'm sort of in the shoes of what this hypothetical is asking about. What I see right now is Jeff in the meeting as a participant. And then I see, as Jeff's camera, the produced Ecamm output. And I hear the audio coming in from Ecamm, but I don't hear myself back, which is great. Otherwise, I'd have a loop, right? So Ecamm is kind of magically in the background taking care of all the mix minus that needs to be done. I can hear Doc, I can hear Jeff, and I can hear any sound effects that would be applied or anything like that. And I can see the produced thing. I see the lower third right now. I have the whole look coming back to me as a confidence monitor as Jeff's camera. So for me, it's a very, like I said, simple experience. Jeff is in my meeting, and I can see what Jeff is doing, and I can hear what Jeff is saying, and I can hear what other people that Jeff has connected are saying. So it's a very natural experience.
And one thing we haven't touched on, and I think it's a big, big deal, and because I don't have multiple people other than Doc and Andy in the room, I can bring up Zoom comments on the screen, which is huge. So, Doc, if you want to throw something up, maybe a comment.
I'm in the Zoom here.
Okay.
So
Andy can do that.
Yeah, and what it does is, like, if you think about all those webinars that you have either done, produced, or watched, you see them talking to those people in the webinar, and you just have to kind of go off what they're saying when they're answering a question.
Yes,
but
that is so true, and it feels weird.
Yeah, and like this is Andy inside of Zoom, and I can pull it up so for the recording, everybody can see his question, which I think is kind of a really, really big deal, especially for replays. You're doing those webinars. I think this is something, as a remote producer, you can pitch to your clients. Like, listen, I can do this. Not many other people know how to do this. and that just adds a whole nother layer of professionalism and all that stuff to your Zoom. To your production as far as I'm concerned. So.
One of the things that we've been talking about, Jeff, this entire week has been the engagement and the interaction that you can now have. And you just mentioned something very, very important. Before, when people are doing these sort of mixed media meetings, the people and guests, people in Zoom, they're there and they're making comments and the host is reading it and they're getting that little bit of endorphin because the host read their comment, but it's like a disambiguated body or someone talking in like the fourth or fifth person. Now, when you put their actual comment on and the host can read that comment, number one, they just feel much better because,
right.
You saw them, I see you. So now I have your comment there. I'm able to respond to it. But then the person watching at home gets a little avatar, and it could be any kind of thing from a Smurf character to a real picture, but it's still a different connection to that person who posited that question as opposed to just talking in the space like, oh, what are you talking about, Willis? And it sounds like I'm speaking to like one of my imaginary friends.
Yeah. So Andy, have you noticed, because I know you've probably done more Zoom meetings than any of us here. When that happens, have you noticed a big jump in engagement or just the feel of the room when stuff like that happens?
So you create a feedback loop when you do this. As soon as you acknowledge the interaction offered by one of your guests and you feature it on screen, for example, it gets everybody else excited about doing the same thing because they can see that you're rewarding that opportunity for them. So this creates this kind of feedback loop where some people see their comment coming in, they're incentivized to put in another comment. Other people see that, they put in a comment, right? And it kind of snowballs into this really, really engaging experience. And when the audience feels like they have an investment in the event and in the way that the event is crafted, they're there for you, and it drives live viewership and it drives long-term participation in the event. So it's very, very powerful to be doing things like that.
That's awesome. So this next section, I want to talk about some benefits and use cases and kind of different things. But before we do that, I want to make sure, and I was so excited, I forgot to do this at the start of the show, that this show is brought to you by our folks at Ecamm. They're the sponsor of the show. You can find out more about them at ecamm.com/Jeff. You can save 15% on your first purchase by using the code Jeff15. And here's a little power tip for you. You want to get Ecamm Pro. And if you're going to, you can test it for a while, but use this code for when you buy the yearly plan, because you're going to want to buy the yearly plan so you can do this for all your Zoom meetings, all that stuff. So ecamm.com/Jeff, use that code Jeff15 to save some moolah. And by the way, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. First of all, Creator Camp, has been launched, but the problem is they're sold out. There are no more tickets. So if you want a chance to go to, Creator Camp, with Doc is going to be leading a group. I'm going to be speaking there along with Ian Anderson Gray. You can go to jeffc.com/win to enter for a chance to win a ticket to Creator Camp. I've got a special bonus code at the end of this broadcast that I'll probably forget, but I'll try to remember to put it up for you guys so you can get some extra entries there. But jeffc.com/win. It's the only way now to get to Creator Camp. So I'm so excited about that too. It's going to be so much fun.
Last year, Jeff, the highlight of my year was our breakfasts in the morning at the hotel with me, you, and Ian, and Stephanie. We're just hanging out in the morning, having our breakfast and just chatting and having a proper cuppa with my man from across the pond. So what an amazing sessions. I really
and we're all in the same hotel this year, which is going to be very, very cool because we can all get up and have a giant breakfast and get together, which is going to be fun. So, all right. So let's talk about some benefits and use cases. I want to talk about the different ways I think a lot of people use Ecamm. And I want to think about, to start off, a lot of podcasters use Zoom, right? To use their, to get guests in when they're doing their interview calls. A lot of them use Ecamm as well. I don't know about you, but I think there's no excuse anymore not to have a video component to a podcast. I'm talking to you, Lou Mongello. You do this, it drives me nuts. He gets to sit down like Kevin Feige from Marvel, and I'm like, do you not think I want to see that? Come on. And Eric Fisher, Beyond the Two Discs. Why not? Now it's easier. You're already using Ecamm. You're already using Zoom. Why not have a video component? So, Andy, how easy is it to have a video podcast with Zoom and Ecamm.
We've seen a lot of podcast networks begin to adopt Zoom to bring in those remote guests. And the power of that, right, is not only that, you can talk to somebody anywhere in the world, but it's that they don't have to come to you, right? And that creates this really powerful opportunity for panel conversations with the right experts, like I've been saying, right? Not just the ones that are convenient or the ones that you can book in your studio, but people that you can bring in from anywhere in the world. Now, I think this has become a more obvious point in the past couple of years, but in 2019, for example, before something kind of forced us
Right.
all to think about this a little more carefully. The primary benefit was, wherever the right person is, you can get them into your show. Now, I think we all appreciate that a little bit more. But on the Zoom side, right, having a low latency, high quality interaction with people allows us to have a real conversation, right? And that I think is very, very powerful. So we've seen Zoom used in the podcasting space for many years. It's become ever more prevalent. And now you can see us investing in the tools that allow the end result of that podcast to be more professional, right? It's not just recording a Zoom meeting or screen scraping the gallery view, but actually creating something that's personalized and branded and helps tell the story visually in addition to being able to get the raw content.
And I just, once again, I bought a new computer for this entire reason, is that I can have ISO tracks. Like, that is for repurposing, being able to take doc and not have my lower thirds up there and just repurpose it for, Reels or YouTube Shorts. Having that now, and now I can use it with Zoom. It's just like, it's a no-brainer for me. It's so easy, and you're actually just maximizing stuff so much. So,
Jeff, one of the things that I think is fun is Zoom just recently added Zoom clips, and they also added the AI companion. And the thing about the Zoom integration is it's actually Zoom running inside of Ecamm. Like, it's actually Zoom. It's not it's not it's the whole thing. So you press AI companion and it's going to take those notes for you while you are recording, right? If you wanted to do live reactions, which Andy will be able to show you in a second, you can do the new animated live reactions that are in Zoom. You could add that directly in to the show. But you're able to just press a button and get those clips, and they're just going to work, right? And I think the other thing about this from sort of a podcast perspective is here's your real use case. Nowadays, podcasting ad revenue is a little bit challenging, but let's say I have a pre-show and an after show, and that's a paid situation. Those guys are sitting in Zoom, they're in the gallery, they're minding their business, they're watching the recording. And at the end of the podcast, we're going to do the after party type situation. Now, I can drag up members from the gallery onto the screen to do after party clips where we're going to go deeper. We're going to ask Andy about his Cuddy Shark ship behind his head. Like, did he build that by hand? What type of glue did he use? Did he get it from Hobby Lobby? And as he gets into those things, if he gives you permission, you can take those and turn them into clips that generates the FOMO for the membership.
Yeah, that is super. I was going to talk about that a little bit later, but so show me the live reactions. What are you? I don't know exactly what those are. So
inside of Zoom, you can, you've always been able to like raise your hand and put up a heart and kind of have that corner pinned to the top left corner. But now you can pick literally any emoji in Zoom, and you can have them kind of immersively float up in your screen, right? And because, as Doc said, this is the full Zoom integration. Any of those Zoom features, right, that interact with the program are now brought over to Ecamm as well. And likewise, those backend capabilities like AI Companion Smart Chapters and meeting summarization and all of that. Yeah, Whiteboard, of course, a great interactivity tool. Those are all available via Ecamm as well. And that, again, these engagement tools, these summarization tools, they basically, as Zoom continues to invest in its side of the platform and Ecamm continues to invest in its capabilities, end users of this integration get the benefits of development on both sides of the equation. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, and it really does not feel like you've got two programs. That's what I just want to keep saying. It doesn't feel like, oh, I've got to pop open Zoom and enter this and do this. It all's inside of Ecamm. That is just like, and you've got to test it out if you haven't tried it yet, because it's really,
actually
really
a little lighter on the processing side because of just the way that it's being handled. Like, a lot of people say, well, I can't open both apps on my computer. It's still running Zoom, but it's running it slightly lighter. For probably Window Manager or something is, getting into the nerd side of it. That's kind of making it a little bit softer on the processor, but it definitely not as heavy.
So this is a great question from Tommy again. He's got great ones today. Thanks, Tommy. He goes, what about audio call-in only guests mentioned previously? Can they be added with a placeholder pick inside of Ecamm? Like I noticed, and you guys need to watch this. It's on Ecamm's YouTube channel. Kat does a great kind of walkthrough of the new features. And she actually had one of her Zoom people using the app on the phone. That's what we're going to say. They were parked. They weren't driving. And, you know, they were part of the Zoom meeting, and technically she could bring them in to the show via the Zoom app. Am I correct in saying that, Andy?
Yes,
that's right. If you can get into Zoom, you can get in, right?
Okay.
So that's like, you know, and Zoom supports a variety of different join methods, right? I think, you know, maybe popular for content creation are the Mac and PC, of course, but iOS and Android and even on the iPad, you can join on the Linux client, you can join through the browser, right? So there's a lot of different ways to get into Zoom, and then the Ecamm can kind of latch onto that once you're on the inside. In the case of audio call-in, I think it would depend exactly how you structure the show, and you'd have to kind of build out your placeholder graphic and figure out how you wanted to do that, but it should be possible.
Yeah.
and that's what I was going to say. Build a placeholder graphic that says on the phone, like exactly like they're doing TV, because again, having disembodied voices in your show, it works. But you notice on TV, they always put up
An
a
icon.
little head silhouette, an icon,
Right.
maybe the person's image, you know, something like that. And I teach that in the demo every Friday. I always teach them to put the picture behind the camera, so in case that person drops, their photo is there, because the disembodied voice is just weird. So yeah, that's how you do it.
So just one of the things that I can see is like, and this is not, you know, you could be at Podcast Movement or a big event. You could be producing something and have somebody going out on the floor with, you know, your mobile phone, being able to take that inside of Zoom and produce a show with Ecamm really, really easy with, I mean, signal strength and all that stuff, you know, in a conference. But that could be possible. Like you could have remote reporters and pull them in and do some really cool shows that way. So there's
like you said, Lou, we're talking to you, buddy.
I know you can pick up on that, right? Like, listen, I know you're out in the park. He's been wanting an app for years, but he could technically use this and go into Zoom and do it that way. So that is just so very, very cool. So we're talking about like workflows, and if you guys have questions about like use case scenarios, all that stuff, make sure you ask them. I'm going to try to bring as many as I can to this. But okay, we talked about kind of podcasting. Let's talk about what like this is, a live show, some of the use cases here. And Doc, I want to hone in on what you said earlier about having a special thing for people like the after party or whatever. Luria used to do, I don't know if she still does it for her community, but she would go live on YouTube and have like her public facing show. But then she'd say, okay, that's it. And she had it in screen or whatever. But then she would bring on her community, her paid community, and they could ask questions of the guest. I would think this would be a perfect way. People could actually be in the gallery on Zoom and kind of see how the sausage is made, you know, like have special access. And then at the end say, hey, Andy, Doc, do you mind staying for like another 10 minutes where my community can ask you questions? And that would be, I would just think, such a value add to people who are part of or trying to start a community.
Yes, and okay, so when you invite the person on, right? So Jeff, you're going to come on the show,
right?
And I'm going to let you know that we want to do something special for the members. So we're going to go into like your really, really insider AI tips that we couldn't really cover in the stream because they're too big, and then we'll be able to record those for anyone who couldn't come. But then also, if you, with permission again, talk to your guests, you can use those as FOMO generation in order to help drive some new bodies to your membership, because this is honestly how we're going to pay for all this stuff nowadays, as ad revenue becomes softer and softer just because of what it is. So like it's a really good way to build this sort of thing. But then Daniel told me something yesterday which I haven't tried. He's like, you can put all of your speakers into a breakout room, have all your galleries into the people, your standard people in your gallery room, and you could even rock it like that. So the speakers are all together in one spot, and then all the other people in one spot, so they just don't get distracted during the meeting if you have somebody like that. And I was like, wait, really? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God, that's mind blowing. So I can't wait to test it out this weekend with my membership, because I think it's a cool way to allow that interaction, and you can bring people in back and forth. So if someone has something really good, you could drag them into the breakout session and give them an opportunity to shine. And Andy mentioned it. Your experts, some of them are in your group, bro. They're sitting in the chair on the other side of the screen, and normally you wouldn't bring them. So if you're doing a show and Tommy has all of these great things to say, and it's like, Tommy, are you camera ready? And he's like, yeah. All right, here, hit this link real quick. Let me bring you in, because Tommy is more informed than what we're talking about. So let's bring him in real quick and have him, fill in some of the gaps.
That's cool, Andy.
Amazing.
I haven't done. I mean, I've joined a lot of Zoom things, but I really not have done the breakout sessions. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is it included? Do you have to upgrade to have breakout sessions? Is it part of Zoom? How does that work?
I believe breakout rooms are included in all of our plans. And what a breakout room basically is a meeting inside of a meeting, for example. So I could say I want to have a place for my on-screen audience, and they're going to go into one place, and maybe I want another room that's for just my panelists and presenters, and maybe I want a debriefing room later where we'll send people to. In event production, what we sometimes see is this approach where you use a series of breakout rooms as kind of a prep. So let's imagine we had an award show or something like that, right? We bring in all the candidates into the main meeting, and then we have a breakout room that's all the nominees for the upcoming award, and we'll move all the nominees into one room, and then we'll move them into a different breakout room when we announce the winners. And then we'll move the winners into an after party room as we clear out the stage for the next group, right? So breakout rooms allow you to kind of divide up the participants into different sub meetings within the experience. And then Ecamm can also join breakout rooms and add production or grab guests out of those as well. So that opens up a lot of opportunities.
That is really, man, my mind is
wild.
spinning. Yeah, it's spinning.
It's wild. It's wild. It's funny. I just thought of this, and Andy said it, not even more so. I have to try something crazy. So I'm hosting this show with the people here, and then we have a breakout room that's basically you're connected to the same meeting on your Ecamm, and you're going to send that breakout room to a different feed. And so if we're doing a live event and people are watching at home, you can see the instructional side, and then maybe you can pull out and jump into the test side. And then that test side is streaming on a whole different feed. It's on the Jeff channel, and I got one on the Doc channel. But so you can kind of situation. That's crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
You're nerding out, and everybody's like, "Oh, what now?"
Yeah, see, you started it, bro. You started it. You woke me up. You got me asking questions, and I start thinking like, "Oh, look, wait, this would be cool."
There we go. So let's go back into like another use case for what Zoom is. A lot of people use it for is webinars, like putting together webinars. One of the things, and once again, I love her content, but go watch Kat's video on how to do this, because she shows, bringing up slides and being there with it, having active speaker, which we really haven't even talked about yet, switch cameras automatically for you, where you can set it up like you aren't a active speaker, you're always there, and everybody else, when they talk, joins in beside you with your slides. I mean, there's all sorts of cool things you can do now with webinars. So Andy, talk a little bit about that, like the ability now to take your webinars, not just to be one of those, okay, I got to sit through this to hear the pitch at the end kind of a thing, but actually have it engaging and have that production, not only, what do you laugh at, Doc? The pitch at the end?
We just talked about this event where it was basically the whole thing, and then you get to the end to the pitch. So it just made me laugh.
Do the pitch at the beginning, throw everybody off. So what are some ideas, Andy, that you could use this integration now to take those webinars to the next level and maybe not have people tune out and not
Absolutely.
purchase?
I sometimes say production value is not only the value that you put into your event, but it's also the value that your audience is going to extract from it, right? So, if you put on an event and you don't put a lot of effort into the way it looks and feels, your audience walks away with a subliminal message that maybe the content isn't important either, because it wasn't important enough to you to put in the value to make it happen. I know that sounds a little harsh, but I think it's very true. So adding production value, I think, is a critical way to help communicate the message. And when you add in production tools like Ecamm to help you control what the audience sees and what the audience hears, you're now able to craft the story on a kind of a multi-axis, way of managing it. So you can craft the visuals, you can craft who we are looking at a given time, right? It's not just a gallery view of everybody, including the people who are kind of off to the side doing something else when it's not their turn to speak, right? Yeah. And you can bring all those things together. You can add sound effects. You can kind of craft everything to make it more packaged up for your audience. Graphics in lower thirds. Here's a great example right there, right? Being able to highlight certain key points of messaging. And this all ties in with our events and webinar products on the Zoom side, which is kind of this few to many product inside of Zoom where you have maybe a large audience primarily engaged over chat and Q&A, and then you have your presenters together and you want to kind of craft what that experience is so that the attendees see something that's produced. Ecamm is going to be a great tool to add that production value out.
So I know a lot of people, Doc, when they think like, okay, this is great. I'd love to be able to do this, but I don't know how. Like, I can't make a moving background like Jeff has on the thing. I can't do like, I don't even know how you get those 3 boxes on there. Now, I'll tell you this, folks, it's a lot easier than ever before to make, your graphics. I know you guys see like Marshall Fox, you see Doc's show, you see Katie's show, and you're like, I would love to do that. Give some people some tips and encourage them that you don't have to have a graphic design degree to create a really cool custom show in Ecamm.
Well, a couple things. First, I like to remind everybody you didn't know how to walk, talk, or clean your bottom. And you can do all of the above now, I hope. So the idea of I don't know how, everything you've ever done in your life, you didn't know how, including that paper you got on the wall back there or them youngins you got running around, they all started with not knowing how. So please stop that. Now, the second part is, if you see my show is super simple. It's just me, camera, background. I do not do anything crazy. I don't do anything heavily designed because I believe in high functional minimalism. And that comes from my time in the desert. I realized how important a glass of water was when I was in Kuwait. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't always have to be a Pepsi or, your favorite beer or whatever. Like, sometimes you just want it to be super simple. We do training every Friday. After this show, I get like a 2-hour break and then I'm on to the live demo. So I do a live demo training every Friday. We've actually just started to switch this up to where it's going to be me on one Friday and India and Ana. Happy birthday, Ana, doing Ecamm and Español. And so they're going to do Spanish version every other Friday. And then we're going to have like Neil and Andy do some, Paul do some. So we're even going to switch up the demo. So it isn't just a nerd guy talking to you. We're going to allow all of our moderators from different levels to come in. You get all different feels, all different looks, because the idea, and you said it best, is that it doesn't have to be scary. I think a lot of people, they want to go from zero to ESPN, and that's not not necessary. Right. Like, your audience, and Andy kind of said it, and it was so elegant, Andy, like I almost need to put this into a frame. Andy said production value isn't just the value of the production, but the value that your audience gets out of it. Whenever someone comes into Ecamm and they ask for some crazy feature because they think it's going to make them cool, and I know that it's an ego play, I ask them, how does this benefit your audience? And they never can answer the question because they're watching something that somebody else did that was very like, oh, look, this twirls. And like, okay, so yeah, we can add that, but what does it do for your audience? And never an answer. So calm down and just do good stuff.
I remember when I started doing video editing way back in the day with like the Premiere version 2, everybody had page flips. Remember that? There's all that was the transition. Everybody wanted to do a page flip. I'm like, stop with the page.
Toaster, it was the girl that pulled down the thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We're nerds here. Yes. But so I wanted to point out that like when Ecamm first started, you kind of had to have a little bit of knowledge of setting up a scene. And now it's really easy. Like you just, you can almost just draw out your box and like put the size of the border you want on it and lay it all out, and it just snaps to place. And so it's not this big heavy lift that I think a lot of people, when they look at some of these things, feel like it has to be easy, and it's really easy to use. So
and there's a bunch of people in our group that have nice templates or whatever that you can download and try or whatever. But it's really, I just encourage people to just try it. Like, once you try it, you'll get it. And my funny story is, when I first looked at Ecamm, I thought, no way is this powerful because it was too inexpensive. I came from basically $1,000 program called Wirecast. And then I was like, man, there's no way that's a toy. Ha ha ha. And then one day I lost my Wirecast sponsorship and I was like, well, I got to go buy something. And man, this toy looked pretty cool. Yeah. And then I downloaded it. I was like, wait, this is more powerful than Wirecast. I've been wasting money. That wasn't really my money. It was my sponsor. But anyway, still.
But speaking of sponsors, don't forget to go to ecamm.com/Jeff. Save 15% by using Jeff 15. See how seamless that was.
It's so good, Jeff.
But seriously, it's a great program, and I came from the Wirecast vMix and all that stuff, and so, and Gary said we got some great comments. Somebody wants to make a T-shirt out of "You didn't know how to clean your bottom, Doc Rock 2024." That would be a great one for a T-shirt or a mug. And Paul says, "Start simple, the rest will come." Very, very true. Thanks, Paul, for that. Yeah, and then Richard says a lot of people want to go from zero to ESPN. See, Doc, that's why we have him on the show. He just gives all these great quotables for this. And Gary says great points. This benefit, like Ask the Podcast Coach has people come on his show all the time, and so this would be a great thing for him as well. The ease of use to onboard people, and Gary says I tend to keep the same setup, but have each show in a different profile. All my Stream Deck buttons are uniform. That's a great little tip too. One of the things I want to, before we wrap up the show, is talk about remote producing, because I know a lot of people do that. I know Chris Stone has a great service where he does remote producing for people. I know Gary does some stuff. A lot of people inside the Ecamm fam do remote producing. So I want to talk about this, because I was just thinking, in the shower this morning going, man, if you just have like a discovery call, don't do it in the shower. But if you have a discovery call with a client, a safety tip, don't use the shower. But having this, being able to come in a Zoom meeting, because everybody does those kind of calls with Zoom, and you just say, hey, I got this plan, I put it together, and you have your proposal right there. You're able to pull up these graphics and walk them through it, and they're just going to go like, how are you doing that? Like, I just see the power of when you pitch clients your services, that this is going to be amazing. And we didn't really even talk about how inside of webinars that having your slides and everything just works, because Ecamm has got that down. So talk a little bit about that, Andy, about remote producing. I know a lot of people use Zoom, especially for podcasts. A lot of people have that kind of thing, but the ability to showcase your talents in not even showing off, but just showing up and going, hey, here's the meeting. And they're like, how come we're together on the screen like that? And there's a moving background. How did you do that? Like, I just think that's super powerful.
Well, we talked a lot today about a visual medium, right? And one of the great things about remote production is being able to see what you need to see and have a conversation with people who can help you. So the simplicity, right, of just setting up a Zoom meeting and being able to engage with maybe a knowledge expert on design or something like that, and be able to see what they're doing and pass that back onto your end. Or something that we've experienced this week, Doc and I, as we've been going through sort of different showcases, has been yesterday on office hours. We had I think 5 or 6 different people who were all remote producing the show, telling us about how to set up our microphone, or telling us right what the run of show was going to be like, or sending us just information about the event. None of them on air, right? But all in the Zoom meeting, helping us kind of follow the yellow brick road a little bit as we got closer and closer to the show. So there are a lot of ways, right? If you can get into a Zoom meeting, you can participate in the production of the event. And with Ecamm now, you have the ability to expand the scope of that even into the visual design. You talked about SlideShare, right? So that's another way we can bring content directly into our scenes when somebody just simply screen shares inside of Zoom. So if there's a web page or something like that, we want to feature a document or a Google Slides presentation or something like that, we can highlight those things and bring them directly into what we're crafting. So we have somebody remotely sharing content, right, to help us produce the event, and they can be advancing the slides, or they can be loading up different media and kind of beaming that over Zoom to Ecamm to help us with the production on that side as well. So there's so much about collaboration that's built into Zoom. I mean, our motto is one open platform for limitless human connection, right? And that now expands into the domain of Ecamm as well. So that's something that I think I'm really excited to see.
Awesome. Any tips for remote producers using this Ecamm integration, Doc?
Yeah, I think the first thing that everyone should do, no matter where you sit in your Ecamm journey, you should try to do a remote production. And I was talking to Gary in the chat earlier. Gary says he never spent any time on the guest side in Ecamm. Like, I'm looking at your guest link right now, and I'm like, imagine a chef that doesn't taste his own food. You're inviting people to come on your show as a guest, and you never spend time in the guest side. That makes about as much sense as screen doors in the submarine. So go into the community and just say, hey, somebody, I want to test out my guest mode. Somebody send me their guest link. And Tommy ain't doing nothing. Tommy will send him the Tommy link, and then Gary can look in and just see what the backend is. Because then when your people ask you questions about how do I change my interface or make my mic louder or whatever, you can do that. I think in that same vein, you should try a situation where you have two of your buddies call you, and then you're just not on the camera. So you have Jeff's face on and Andy's face on, and you just sit back there and you move things. That is your beginning of remote production. Because once you have that skill, and once you understand it, it's not a hard skill, by the way. It's very simple. If you already know use Ecamm, you already know how to do it. But once you have that, it is worth so much. I cannot tell you how many things I have remote produced because somebody just needed something right away and they didn't want to think about it. And they're just like, here's money, produce said. I'm like, absolutely done. And I just sit in the back and I could do it from home. Okay. Here's the part where no one really wrapping their head around. I could do it from home. His cabinet over here is an amazing Japanese whiskey collection. So I can remote produce a show while I'm drinking a Yamazaki 18, which I know is about $2,800 a bottle at this point, and nobody knows. I'm minding my business. I'm enjoying the show.
Well, now I know.
Getting paid to enjoy my whiskey. So, that's it is funny. A skill that you should definitely pick up on.
So we are not encouraging drinking and producing, but you can, I guess is what Doc is saying.
You can.
One of the things I want to pull up this, and Paul says it great. He says, hard to explain to a guest how it works if you haven't been there. So that is a great tip, Paul. Thank you for that. And then this is perfect. It's a perfect segue to our ending. Is Tommy says, one of the things I love about the Ecamm Live is the family. It reminds me of the early Mac days when we had 2% market share and we were all evangelists like Guy Kawasaki. So, yeah, that is so true. In fact,
that was a good link up there, Tommy. I know what you did there. I seen you.
Yeah, Guy Kawasaki, and who I produced the podcast for Guy anyway. So,
that's why.
Yeah, I know. So one of the things is I wanted to say the family is huge. I talk about community a lot, and we talk about Ecamm as being one great example of the community. I'm not going to name names, but famous people stop by and ask questions and feel comfortable for asking questions inside of the group. Some big people.
You can name it because I was fangirling this week.
It's like Seth Godin just stopped by and dropped a question. Like, and everybody just, there were some like, this is here, this is cool. But mostly people were just helping with him. And I think he really, he felt like it was a good place. And Michael Hyatt stops in there all the time.
To that. I think he's used to the fact that he knows he's going to get a couple fangirl moments. But you are right. More people came in to assist than did the fangirl moment.
Yeah.
And trust me, it took every ounce of my energy not to go, oh my God, Seth, hey! I was like, yes, sir. Let us see if we can get you handled. I'm typing away and giggling in my chair.
But it's just cool like that. You're like, dude, Seth uses this for his stuff. Like, that's just awesome. Like, you kind of get a little validation. Like, I'm using the same tool Seth does. Yeah. So anyway,
all the heavy hitters: Seth Godin, Gary Stockton.
Yeah, Gary Stockton. That's right. Abby C. So anyway, this has been amazing. I want to let you guys have the last couple of minutes to tell people where to find out more about you. And I would love to know if you could, like, what's on the roadmap? Like, do you have any ideas, like, what's kind of next? And you got a lot of feedback with this launch. You're probably not ready to share what, you're working on, but just where they can find you, where they can connect, all that stuff. Andy, we'll go with you first.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also follow a lot of my work at liminalet.com. Liminal is a pro production brand that's owned and managed by Zoom, and we publish multiple production tools under the Liminal banner, including a new app called Tiles that we just released last Friday. So that's, a lot of information that you can find there on the projects. But basically, yeah, anywhere that you can find Zoom, zoom.us, and all of those different places that Zoom pops up in your life now over the past couple of years. We've likely been touching it somewhere. So you'll find us there.
Awesome. Mr. Doc Rock, what about you?
Oh, Doc Rock all over the internets and always inside of Ecamm testing stuff and breaking stuff. And currently now just trying to find more things that will make your job easier. It's like, I want to hyper simplify your Ecamm process. So in sort of my new position, it's been going out and finding things that we can integrate or tools that we can, say for sure, no pun intended, Chris, that these items actually work. So if you stick inside this bubble of safety that we're building for you, we know that your productions will come off just grand. And I am launching my physical product probably in the next 3 weeks. So please pay attention.
I can't wait. We'll have to have you on the show when you do that, Doc. I'd love to push that out. So, yeah. So, thank you guys so much. All the great questions. Paul, Gary, Abby, everybody who stopped by, left a great comment or a question. It's been a fabulous show. Don't forget the chance to win a creator ticket, because they're all sold out now. You can find out more about jeffc.com/win. Enter for your chance to win a free one. And that free code for extra chances today is AFVXX4. AFVXX4. That will give you some more chance to win this fabulous ticket. And don't forget our sponsors of the show, Ecamm. We've talked about them all day. You've got to get the Pro Plan. It is amazing. You can find out more about them at ecamm.com/Jeff. And with that, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much. Talk to you later. Bye.